Hello, listener. You're listening to Ando's Thinky Time podcast, which, of course, you must have known that. You're on the internet. You knew how it worked. You navigated to this. You came here on purpose. So I don't know why I felt like I had to tell you what the fuck you're listening to. This is going to be a newer idea. This is kind of a spin-off of the Prairie Scholars podcast. That's the other podcast I do with my wife, where we interview artists and business people from Longmont, Colorado. This is a little bit of a spin-off of that. It's just going to be me interviewing somebody around me that I think is interesting. Not necessarily about our community, but sometimes about our community. I hope that it won't seem too lonesome. I'm also recording these intros for each of these interviews after the fact. But I'm trying to make this a kind of a more official show, I guess. That's why we've got a band leader, for this show. That's Jimmy over there. Say hello, Jimmy.
Hi there.
Great. Yeah, Jimmy's a guitar player, and he's part of the Jimmy 7. If you can believe it, there are 7 people in the band playing this song right now. It's pretty amazing. It's nice to have him here. Thanks, Jimmy, for being here. Jimmy's a really great band leader, and he's a really great musician to be working with on this project because we're not exactly making tons of cash or anything from this project, so it's important to work with people like Jimmy because Jimmy, doesn't exist at all. Isn't that right, Jimmy?
Yeah, I'm just you again.
Right. Yeah, so this episode in the living room, I've got Dr. Karen McCormick. Seems like a really nice lady. I found out about her because she is running for Congress as a Democrat from our little neck of the woods here. So I thought I'd reach out to her and see if she wanted to come over and talk, politics with me. Kind of, I don't know, do kind of like a meet and greet kind of thing. That way, I can meet her and figure out if I think she's a good candidate, and at the same time, you can get to sit in on that and form your own opinions. As it happens, it was a really wonderful interview, and she's a super lady, and a very thoughtful person, I think. I find that I agree with her on a lot of the things that we talked about. I might even have her on again in the future as the race heats up, just to see how things are going. And I think it's going to be really interesting if we can kind of follow a person through this process, because running for Congress is an extremely stressful, complicated thing. And we get to talk a little bit about that. We also talk about Longmont, because she's lived in Longmont 22, 23 years. And she had a lot of positive things to say about our community, as did I, of course. And then we talked about some of our community values that we'd like to see played out in Washington. In the great tire fire that is Washington. And then, of course, because she is running to be a public official on a national scale, I felt at some point, of course, I went into a short but not too preachy sermon about the dangers of artificial intelligence, which, for some reason, I just can't shut the fuck up about robots and how dangerous I think it's going to be. I'm trying to ride the brakes so hard not to give you a lecture right now on it. I did the same for her. I tried not to give her too much of an explanation, but I felt like if I never get to talk to her again, and if she goes all the way and gets to Congress, and I never get to talk to her again because she's much too fancy to talk to me, I want to know that I had mentioned that and tried to put that in a decision maker's brain. She's a very, very busy lady. Obviously, running for Congress is, like we say, a very complicated and busy job. But she made time. She made an hour to come over and sit with me in the living room and talk into my little microphone. I thought that was very cool of her. And I think you'll really like this episode. There are 2 parts to this episode. This first part you'll be listening to here, but then there'll be a second part that's only available on the Prairie Scholars Patreon page. Now, what that means is you go to prairiescholars.com, and there will be a little link there in the menu that says Patreon. Patreon. Sounds like some kind of futuristic thing, and I think it is the future. I hope it's the future for our business. What I'd like you to do is sign up there. You click that link, and it'll take you to a website that is a subscription-based format, and we're trying to develop an audience there that is safe to show anything to. That's basically what the project is for me as an artist. And so for a minimal fee, you'll get podcasts like this in their complete form, behind the scenes looks at all the art that we create here in our little house, early release music. I just released singles there the last 2 months that you cannot get anywhere else. It's a cool thing, Patreon. The Prairie Scholars on Patreon. That's what you want, folks. As for this episode, Dr. Karen McCormick, she's a very interesting lady. McCormick for Congress on Facebook. Look her up and tell me what you think, friends. You know how to use the internet. Thanks for listening. The following is a Robert Frost poem called A Time to Talk, read to us by a fully sentient robot person.
When a friend calls to me from the road and slows his horse to a meaning walk, I don't stand and look around on all the hills I haven't hoed and shout from where I am, what is it? No, not as there is time to talk. I thrust my hoe into the mellow ground, blade end up and 5 feet tall, and plod. I go up to the stone wall for a friendly visit.
Thanks to Dr. McCormick for stopping by for a friendly visit, even though she's so busy. And thank you for listening to my little show here. Miss McCormick here, Dr. Karen McCormick.
Thank you.
Is she didn't go to school to be called Mrs. You know what I'm saying? She's running for Congress from our community here. And you've lived in Longmont 22 years? 23 years? That's a long old time, man.
It's the longest I've ever lived anywhere.
Really?
Yep.
I moved up here at the end of 2009 because I was touring through in 2007 and 8 with my music. And I kind of almost by accident ran into Longmont and fell in love, man. Is that what happened to you?
Well, what parts... I shouldn't be interviewing you,
No,
but
you
I
can
want to
do it.
know
This
what
is an open interview here.
parts of Longmont attracted you.
Back then, the scenery was, the view from here of the mountains is exceptional.
It
and it's
truly
better
is.
than 10 miles this way or that way. We really have a special view.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's
agree.
that. But also, I come from Lubbock, Texas, originally. And that's a very competitive place there. It's a college town.
How big, population-wise?
200 plus thousand.
Okay.
240,000, something like that.
Pretty big city.
Pretty big city, right in the middle of, Nowheresville, the biggest place in Nowheresville. And that's where Buddy Holly's from, and that's kind of their claim to fame.
Yeah.
That they ran him out of there in the 50s or whatever.
He's a rebel.
Yeah, he was a rebel.
Yep.
He's back then. Rock and roll was the
Oh,
devil's
yeah.
music,
Oh,
man.
absolutely.
And those dudes don't like the devil.
No.
So I came up here in 2009 or 2007, touring with my first album, and as I played in like the breweries and stuff, there were only 2 gigs to play back then. It was the Eagle Grill or Left Hand Brewing. So I played both spots.
Oscar Blues?
No, they weren't
Only
even
in
in town
Lions?
back then.
They were just in Lions.
They were just in Lions.
Okay, I didn't remember.
Well, they had the Weasel, I think. But
Okay.
But the Homemade Liquids and Solids, I don't think was even built yet.
Yeah.
So back then it was like there were 2 corners to play in or whatever. But I just fell in love with the community I met. Everybody seemed to like each other. And it was a bar, so people are disagreeing, talking about religion and politics like you're not supposed to do at the bar or whatever. But then they were like hugging each other goodbye and shit like that. Which like, man, it just really turns me on from a perspective of like community building. It's something I was missing in Texas.
Right. Civil discussion with each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's such an important quality that I think our community really does have. And even politically, even the city council, when they are embroiled in something, they seem to treat each other with a decent amount of respect, you know.
I agree. I think they do too.
I think that's really valuable, and I think that's something from our community that I would like to see more on the national stage, you know, our value system here.
Yep, statewide and national. Absolutely. And I think across the country, as we mentioned earlier, the more we learn to talk to each other and listen with respect, even knowing at the beginning of the conversation you're not necessarily going to change that person's mind.
Right.
And I think that's the mistake. So many people go into a conversation thinking, I want to change your mind.
Right.
And I think we need to step back from that and say, this is why I believe what I do. This is how it affects me or my family or my community. Tell me your story.
Yeah.
Tell me why you believe, so that we are listening and hearing. And I think that coming at each other so strongly as if I am absolutely right and you are absolutely wrong is what's throwing roadblocks up all over this country.
I couldn't agree any more.
Yeah.
We need to prioritize connection and communication over being right or wrong.
And my big kind of part of my platform, you may want to say, or why I am in this from my life experiences, that I look at the issues that need addressing, or I look at the problems. I'm a problem solver.
Yeah.
And so being a problem solver, you see the problem out there, and you hear opinions about, yes, we all see the problem, for instance, you know, tax reform. We all see the problem. How do we address the problem? What ideas do you have? What ideas do you have? Let's listen to every idea, put them all on the table, talk about it with civil respect to each other, and say, you know what, this is why I don't think your idea might work, but if we change your idea just this much, I think that we can both agree. So it's compromise, it's negotiation, it's collaboration. That's missing.
Yeah.
And when we get to this point where that we're seeing in Congress today, our side is going to just go with it. We're not even going to talk to the other side. This dysfunction will be the downfall of our democracy, and that's how concerned I am, and how I have stepped so far out of my comfort zone to do this. This is not. I never, and you hear this time and time again, never thought about running for political office, any kind of public office, ever in my life. It was never my ambition. I'm a veterinarian by trade, ran a very successful small business here in Colorado, raised a family. Those were all very satisfying things for me to do in my life. And I've come to a point in my life where I was starting to just volunteer. I am on some nonprofit boards, which was fun.
I've never heard it described as fun.
It was fun because I'll tell you what they're about in a minute. But I was taking art lessons. I'd never taken art before.
Really?
I was studying Italian. I was doing all these things that kind of like going to adult camp. You know, what
Yeah.
can I do now? What can I do that is just fun? My kids are grown.
Fulfilling.
And very fulfilling,
Yeah.
and kind of expanding my awareness into other fields, like music.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can be a musician, but I'm a great listener.
Don't throw your life away.
Anyway, so, but then this last year happened. Last year and a half
Yeah.
happened. And boy, it just lit a fire in my gut.
Me too, frankly. It's such a mess. It's a national emergency.
Well, that's
You know?
how I feel, and I say this when I go around talking to people in groups. You know, I have my little speech that I give, but I grew up in a military family, and that's why my being here for 23 years and not moving out of that house, and I'm never leaving this house in Longmont. I'd lived so many places, but my dad, he served 30 years in the United States Navy,
Right.
and he was always gone.
And he was in charge of the
He-
USS America.
I know,
Is
so
that
this
right?
is really symbolic.
It's like the
This
greatest
is-
name for a boat
This
ever
is so
made.
symbolic, and it makes me smile, but it's my dad's legacy and what he was really fighting for 30 years. The United States that he was fighting for, and the man that he was, just as a person, his level of integrity and respect for the people he worked with, and frankly, compassion. I find that compassion is a very strong value.
A noble value.
Many think that it may wrongly seem as a weakness, but I find it's a very, very strong value, and
Oh, I
I've
do
used
too.
it.
have to be strong to show
that's been
compassion.
my career. You know, veterinary medicine is a compassionate field. Anyway,
Yes, I think that's
my
true.
dad, as I thought about this last year, and my dad died 6 years ago, I thought about my upbringing and my dad. And I thought, if he were alive today, our family was Republican. We grew up Republican family. Most military families were. If he were alive today, I'm not sure what words would be coming out of his mouth. He was not a cusser, but he would be livid
Yeah.
at the direction our country is going right now, and what he sacrificed, and we all sacrificed by moving all around. I was heading in a certain direction with this. So my upbringing started to kind of come up over this last year as I was seeing who was running for office.
Yeah.
And little by little, how the field started to narrow, and my concern started to grow.
So few decent people want that job.
Yes.
That's really what it
Yes.
comes down to. It comes down
Yeah.
to money hungry,
yeah.
power hungry.
Yes.
That's not who we want.
No. And our system is set up for those type of people
That's right.
to actually, it draws on those people. I'm finding this day by day.
The donors.
The amount of money it takes to run for office is absolutely ridiculous.
That's right. Yeah,
And I
it is.
have to play this game about getting money. And so the people that really should be running across this nation are at a disadvantage. Because number one, we don't like asking for money.
Yeah.
Number two, we're not going to take money from organizations that will speak against our core values. I won't do it.
You got to be careful who you get involved with. In this game.
Exactly. And so it really works against what I think the principles of our nation were founded on. And that's a
you're right.
shame. I think we've gotten upside down and backwards. Oh, I know what I was going for. The ship.
Yes. USS
I'm like,
America.
I knew I had a point.
No, that last thing was interesting too.
Yeah.
This is a free form thing. Don't
Yeah,
worry. It's
okay,
all good.
I'm not. So, an analogy I use is a story my dad told me when he was captain of the USS America. I was in high school at the time. He was describing how, this very large ship with 5,000 people on it.
floating city.
It's a floating city. When you want to turn an aircraft carrier, the process that is involved in turning that ship around or making a left or right turn
Yeah.
is tremendous.
Yeah,
And
I
in
bet that's
order
right.
to turn the ship, you have to have a plan. You first have to have, how are you going to do it? Well, what are your coordinates? Where are you going?
Right.
Map the channel.
How
you
fast
want to
do
make
we go?
you want to make sure you're not going to
Yeah.
run aground. Are there any storms in the future that we need to avoid?
To make a turn.
To make a turn.
Yeah.
And then you have to here's the ship. You have to slowly turn the ship. It doesn't turn on a dime.
No. And if it did, everyone would die because they'd
Yeah,
get
it
thrown
just-
off the ship.
Yeah. So I think that USS America is our country. So we have this ship that's our country. And the people on the bridge are screwing up.
They're not making the plans.
They're not making the plans. They're not, the right hand's not telling what the left hand is doing. They're working against each other. It's chaos.
Yeah.
And I am just motivated to get on that bridge and pull on that wheel as hard as possible to get this ship going in the right direction. And I'm one person. But I think if we start this, or the wave that we've already started to see, if we continue this wave of activism and people that care that much, we started here in Colorado and keep this energy going nationwide. If we flood the market with people that are willing to run for office, from school board to city council to state legislature, all the way up, little by little, we may be able to get enough people in these positions
I believe that's true.
that are there for the right reasons, and then are strong enough people that they're not taken in by the power and the ego and the money. I do believe there are enough people in this nation that have those ideals.
I think you're right. I think
But
most of
they're-
the average people are that way.
But the system is not encouraging them to run.
That's right.
And that's what I'm hoping that we're starting to see change. I really am. And my, the hope was built a little bit 4 days after the election, last November, as I tried to come out of my grief. There was some just little talk on Facebook about this Women's March. 4 days later,
Yeah.
I saw it. I sent a message to someone like, if this is happening, I'm in. Is there a date picked? And they said, yeah, we're aiming for January 21st. So I have a brother that lives in Annapolis. Called him. I said, do you have room on your floor? I got all 3 adult daughters and myself. Tickets, train tickets, plane tickets, rental car. I said, I don't care if there's 50 people there. We're doing this because this is a moment in time that may be significant. And then I worked throughout the fall with the Women's March Colorado to build as many people as possible to get to Washington, D.C. from Colorado.
Oh,
We
I
had
see.
a great group. Plus, there was another part that was working here in Colorado to get Denver. And Denver had an amazing showing. I don't know if you attended.
No, I didn't. We
It was-
were gigging, I think.
That's all right. But in DC, it was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever attended.
I believe
There
that.
were over 1 million men and women there, so peaceful, so shoulder to shoulder. And I wanted my adult daughters to be there. They're 23, and 25. So I wanted them to have something to counteract the negativity that we had just gone through. And that was a very healing, hopeful experience, I thought. And then seeing worldwide what was happening simultaneously
Yeah.
all over the world, the marches. So seeing that built up that hope that indeed there are enough people that may have been quiet in the past, and that
Or unengaged. Or whatever it is.
unengaged,
Yeah.
sitting in front of TVs and computers, knowing what was going on, and deciding to also kind of step out of their comfort zone and march for the first time ever,
Yeah.
which was me, and my daughters. And that gave me hope that there could be something happening here. And then after that, it was just thinking about what else can I do? What else can I do? And I talked to people about running for city council here in Longmont.
Which is a good step. Local
It-
politics
it
is really workable.
It's really important, and it really affects your daily life.
Yeah, it does.
Running for mayor. I was recruited to run for mayor.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get this thought out of my head about our representative. I just kind of was laser focused on his inability to be that person that is willing to collaborate, his inability to truly listen to the residents of this district. There are so many things I've heard traveling around the district that he could be fighting for that do directly affect people in this district, and
Right.
he's not.
No.
So I couldn't let it go. I'd go to bed thinking about, what's it like to run for Congress. I'd wake up in the morning, go, what else can I research about this? Who else can
Yeah.
I reach out to talk to? And I started the process of locally reaching out to people, local Democratic leaders.
It's got to be intimidating.
Hi,
Yeah.
I'm Karen McCormick. I'm a veterinarian and I own a small business, and I'm thinking about running for Congress. And it just, yeah.
You're a veterinarian, but there's a lot of sick puppies in Washington, if you know what I'm saying. Free joke.
Yeah.
Free joke. Help yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, you can think of it as the dog got hit by a car,
Yeah, right.
and we need all experts on hand. Like, bring in the surgeon, bring in the anesthesiologist, bring in the radiologist. Like, we need to save this dog's life.
How do you save the dog's life? I believe that there's two answers to kind of fixing the problem of who's running for office and who's in the seat. I think it's campaign finance reform and term limits. That's really what it comes down to, especially for like Supreme Court. That's what I feel. You can't turn 80 years old and be making decisions about what 20-year-olds ought to do in a bedroom. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And here's the catch-22 though. Campaign finance reform, term limits. Who has a decision to change those things?
The people that are benefiting from that system now.
How do you get enough people in there willing to address those two problems?
Well, I think that things motivate a politician. One of them is shame. And so if you can make something the obvious, just thing to do, then it's easy to kind of get the normal people on your side.
Right.
When the tides kind of turn about that stuff. There's a group of the Democrat Party called the Justice Democrats. And they're basically focused on those things. They want to put I believe it would be the 21st Amendment. 20-something amendment.
There's 27 already.
Yeah, right. So
I have my Constitution right here.
Do you really?
Yeah, really.
I don't keep one on me.
I'm pretty sure there's 27 already.
Yeah, I think you're right. But they're talking about putting in a fresh amendment that would basically get the money out of politics. I believe that you don't really need the money as much in the information age, especially because I believe most things in a society work on relationship. That's why my business has done well, is because it's based on building relationships.
Me too.
And doing that at scale is really the trick, right? For a politician to get votes, you have to be in a relationship with a massive amount of people. And that means you can't really be in a personal relationship with that many people. That's impossible, right? So that's essentially the problem.
Physically impossible, yes.
Right. So what it comes down to is you're trying to meet as many of the, say, 6 basic human needs of a large group as you can. And being connection, significance, probably being the real, and growth, or probably the top 3 that if it were me running, that's probably what I'd be focusing on. But it is expensive to run. There's just not a whole lot of getting around that shit.
There's not, because there are fixed costs. There are campaign people that you need working for you, and this is a full-time job for them.
That's right.
And they deservedly need to be paid for this job. They have the expertise. They know how to build the networks. So there are jobs to be had on campaigns.
There's a whole industry built around
There's
this.
a whole industry, and then there's the hard costs for items that you see. So the mailings, the postage, the signage, the radio time, TV time. There's all those media costs that aren't free, like Facebook.
And you can't be spending your time licking envelopes in the living room or whatever.
Yeah,
you
though
know?
I did yesterday.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
Good for you.
I licked the envelopes and my daughter put the stamps on.
Oh, there you go.
We had a little assembly line going.
See, if you really got a good
Yeah.
politician, you can do that DNA test on the envelope and really know who you
Yeah,
got.
was it really you that licked that envelope? Yes, it was. Yeah, so and because our country is so spread out and districts are so wide and there are such a large population, some people you can meet through, you can kind of build that relationship through digital means, but there is still a whole lot of voters
Handshaking.
that you're a handshake, or
Baby
they
kissing.
really want to see that piece in the mail, honestly.
Oh, really?
A lot of those older voters,
Yeah.
that's the only way to reach them, and they're good voters.
Yeah, totally.
And
They're the voters.
their opinion matters.
Yeah.
And they want to know that you're paying attention, which I am. So there's all kinds of levels that have to be hit, and to be smart about it, you just hit them all.
Yeah, that's right.
You really do. But in a business such as mine, or a industry such as mine, relationship building is the only thing I know how to do.
Yeah.
I mean, besides veterinary medicine, but it's all about that. If you haven't built a decent relationship with your client, then you haven't bonded that client to you nor to your practice.
That's right.
And that was an important part of my focus from building my practice from a 2-doctor practice to a 5-doctor practice. Every person that was on my team had to understand that we put people first. We were successful because we put people first. I would have given away every service possible because I care that much about the animals and the people, but to run a successful business, that's not how you do it. And yes, I know how to run a successful business, but our goal was people driven. The money followed.
Yeah, because people bring money around. when you
People
treat them
are
nice.
willing to pay for your expertise.
That's right.
And they're willing to pay for your ability to truly care about what it is they're coming to you with, their problem. And so just through that experience, I see that relationship is the key to any long-term success. And that's what I want for our country. I want a long-term vision. I feel that we don't have enough people in Congress that are far-sighted enough to really kind of plan out that, how are we going to turn the ship, or how are we going to steer the ship. They're not looking far enough down the road.
That's right. And it's not like when they first got into office. A lot of those dudes have been in there since I was a baby. You know what I'm saying? I'm 32 years old. Some of those dudes have been in office since before that. The rules have completely changed. Technology has changed how society moves forward. It's the information age now.
Yeah.
And those dudes are just barely clicking into that.
Yep.
I just read part of a book because it's almost impossible to digest for
Too
my
dry?
tiny brain.
Too dry?
No, way too complex.
What is it?
Ray Kurzweil, he's got this book called The Singularity is Near. And he
Oh,
talks
that's
about,
what you were talking about.
yes, I've only read I don't know, some chunks of it. I'm
Okay.
not going to try and be prideful here because the dude's a genius. I have to stop every few paragraphs
and
realize.
reabsorb.
Yes.
Like, what did I just read?
Yes, it's about the evolution of technology, and it's it's an exponential growth that it's experiencing, right? So it's not linear over time; it's exponential, and that's much different. And
It's hard to hang on.
Right, hard to hang on, hard to plan for, especially if you don't use email because you're a million years old or whatever. You don't
My
understand.
85-year-old mom uses email
Right.
here in Longmont. She's all over email.
Apparently, there's some of these senators and congressmen that just aren't hip enough to deal with that yet. You know.
Well, yeah, this is what I learned too. Just when I had to file. This is side subject, just real
Please.
quick. But the Senate, if you're running for Senate, they still require a paper version of your like original finances.
Really.
For the House, you can do it online.
Yeah.
But for the Senate, you have to mail in I thought, really?
You know what I'm saying?
Like, what's
What are we
going
doing
on
here? Yeah, and the way they pass bills, they like write a bunch of shit in the margins. It's like, for real? This is how it's gonna work?
Well, the reason they did that is because they were in so much of a hurry.
Yeah. They're just like
Yeah.
wiping their ass with it as soon as they could.
So what else about the singularity?
So
where
the
you were-
problem is, because technology develops so quickly, we're going to be out-evolved by technology. Did you ever see Star Trek: The Next Generation?
Oh gosh, yeah. I'm
Okay.
major.
Commander Data,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He's got a positronic brain. He's like one of the crew members. He's a person, and nobody on that crew would deny that. There's episodes about the personhood of Data. And that's important because that's something we're really going to deal with soon. I just had a friend on Facebook. Everybody knows I'm worried about this shit. I had a friend on Facebook send me a video about these sex robots that they've created. No. Yes, ma'am. They look like people. They're made of silicone. They can kind of move around a little, and their face moves and talks and responds because it's got artificial intelligence. Now, the problem is, pretty soon, the artificial intelligence will just be intelligence because it'll learn to adapt itself. It'll fix itself. That's all going to happen in the next few years. 10 years, we're going to be dealing with these, almost people robots. So that means our relationship with technology needs to be very carefully constructed. If they're going to out-evolve us, for one, and two, if they're going to have emotions like they can sense, if they can experience pain,
Now, what's that show, Westworld?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
like
kind of
that.
like that.
Yeah.
If the robot can experience pain and pleasure, there are moral questions to answer about that person, right? That's why I can't take my big red cat and strangle him in the street for shitting on the carpet or whatever, because
You go to jail.
He's a person, right? And rightfully so, because
Yeah.
I'm hurting a being,
Yeah. Yeah, ooh, good.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
robot problem, because these are going to be people.
Creations that we have created.
Right. So if you have these people that don't even understand how the internet works and that it has changed the world in the last 20 years or whatever since the internet's become popular.
Yeah, they won't have the foresight to
How
know
could they?
how do we make sure that we are moving forward with technology in a way that we have control.
Yeah.
That we're still managing this so that it doesn't.
They can't even adapt to the idea of transgendered folks,
Yeah.
and like gay folks having rights and being people. They're having trouble with that shit. We're not going to have the same amount of time to work on this robot thing because they're going to out-evolve us and they'll be gods.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And how do we get to that point faster? Where I was having this discussion with someone the other day about it was an LGBT event we were at, that my eldest identifies as queer, and way back when I was having this discussion with her, my deepest desire, one of my deepest desires, is I see a world where we are all identified as human.
Yeah.
And that there's no need to have a label on you, or there's no deep feeling that you need to go find your group that you identify with, to find your sense of community. So I understand the need as a human being that yes, at this point we need our community. We need our birds of a feather that
Sure.
we're going to flock together
Sure.
with, because that's what helps sustain us and
Provides
helps us feel
safety and
love and
connection.
safety.
Yes.
But my ideal world in the future is that we love and respect every human as a human.
Yeah.
Whether they have a disability, they enter the world differently, they see the world differently, they love someone that's not looking like the person that you love. And that whole labeling issue also comes across when I think about me running for office. I truly am running as an American.
Yeah.
First, a Coloradan second.
Mm-hmm. Good. That's
Down the list, I'm on the Democratic Party ticket.
yeah.
But just as you're hearing more across the country, and I wish more people would stand up for it, we have got to put this country before any of those party affiliations.
That's right.
We absolutely have to.
Tribalism will tear us apart.
It
That's what
is.
we've been seeing.
It is.
That's why I believe you're right when you say, like, you know, it's a net negative in the future to segregate ourselves into, well, I'm gonna hang out with my gay friends because I'm gay, or my white friends because I'm white, or whatever. All that shit needs to melt away.
Yeah. Did you see there's a new community in Texas?
No, but what is it?
Was on the
Is
news.
it terrible?
Well, it's ridiculous. There's a
Okay.
real estate agent in Texas,
Yeah.
don't ask me what town, who is promoting, and I think he has a developer on board, and they're developing a whole community, and people are moving there from California because they are looking for conservative, extreme conservative minded friends that they want to live with in the same community. They want to isolate themselves.
The conservatives want to build a commune?
They're building a community of housing projects that only they will live
For,
in.
like, angry white folks?
Like, are we really going there where we're so unwilling to talk to each other that now we don't even want to see each other when we get in our car?
That's very
To
human
go to
instinct.
work.
You know what I'm saying? They're doing that shit in the Middle East. You know, it's
This
the
guy
same
was
game.
so excited and proud of his project.
Well, that's the American Taliban, man. People that think like that. You know, they're
And
the dangerous people.
I
here.
want to fight that.
I
I
do
want to
too.
go to that neighborhood and say, why are you doing this?
Yeah, I want to understand that person.
I want to understand that
and I want
person
to
as well.
protect society from that person on some level.
But I also want to try to bring that person back into the fold.
Exactly.
Like, we are Americans. What can we
We.
find
Yeah.
that we agree on common ground?
Yep.
Let's sit here for an hour until we find something
Yeah.
that we
There's
agree
stuff,
on.
dude.
I know.
Term limits,
I
all
know.
those guys agree
Well,
about
even just
term
go,
limits.
if you go further back.
Yeah.
If you go back to
The Constitution?
Let's go back to
Oh,
this.
what do you know?
Let's go back to the very beginning and find out what are our basic civic values that built this country, that we can start there as a foundation. Then we can move into
And that's what I believe that document is a foundation, a living document that's supposed to be changed as we need it to be
interpreted,
different.
and that's why we have the Supreme Court
right.
and those constitutional scholars.
They ask the
They
wrong
learn
questions
to
so often.
interpret and apply.
Right.
And that's why there is a Supreme Court. Their job is to interpret.
Exactly.
Because it's not written in there. All those answers aren't written in
Not
there.
really, because like
You
they
know?
didn't have Uzis and they didn't have, you know, they weren't giving rights away very easily back then. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
Like corporations are people now. That's the thing, you know, in politics.
Big
And-
thing on my list to change.
Thank you. Yes.
Big.
It bothers me deeply.
Deeply.
I have a rule about it. I'll share with you. You get rights of a person if you can wear a hat. That's why my cat can't be strangled in the streets. Can wear a hat, but a corporation can't wear a hat. That's not a person.
Yep.
I think that's
with
fair.
you. It's pretty simple.
I think that that the question of personhood for a corporation went so quickly, and it just seemed like for me anyway, it was such a radical idea, and obviously kind of to be used for dark purposes. How long is it going to be before a corporation that is a person gets to be religious? Oh, that happened. Mm-hmm. Now they can be religious people. Well, if they're religious people, how long until they get to adopt children? Or how long until they get to vote? I'll bet you they get to vote in a quicker amount of time than women got to vote in this country. I'll bet the question lasts less time with the corporations.
Going at this speed of ridiculous change.
In 10 years, corporations are going to adopt 14-year-olds to work in their factories, and it's going to be illegal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're people.
Yeah.
Where the fuck did the slippery slope argument go?
I know. There was no slope. We fell off a cliff.
Well, the gay folks want to get married, and all my conservative friends say, "Oh, slippery slope. You're going to marry a dog next week or something." My argument for that was...
Listen to yourself.
Right?
Listen to yourself.
The argument for that is, look, if the dog can sign the paperwork, marry the dog. That's what I'm saying. Because you got a special animal. If it knows its name and can write it, hey, marry that dog. Because there's a real person in there.
Yeah. Gracious. Yeah.
Well, what a mess I find, a lot of this stuff to be in. But I'm hopeful to hear your perspective, especially about being in relationship with people that you disagree with. That's, I think... Respectful human relationship.
Civil, yes.
Yeah. Because everybody's got a perspective. It doesn't mean everybody's perspective is equally valid. That's what I think. Because some folks are working with faulty information or unresearched opinion. That, to me, makes their opinion less valuable, but equally important to be exposed to.
Yeah, their perspective is just that, their perspective.
Right.
So, from their point of view, yes, indeed, it is equally valuable because that is a human being in front of you.
Right.
You may wish and think to help guide their perspective to a more open, would you consider this? Or have you ever thought about this? But indeed, their perspective is as valid as yours. It just may not be as positive, moving, or
based on reality.
But it truly is their perspective.
Right.
So, hi.
This is Red 13,
Gorgeous.
our cat.
Why Red 13?
He's a Maine Coon.
Yes, he is.
And he is friendly. He doesn't have any front claws, but he might try and pet your shoes a little. That's how he says hello.
Yeah.
Oh, see, there he goes.
Oh, yeah, on command.
Yeah, he's a very friendly cat. He's not here to bother anybody. He's the security around here. He's just checking up on you.
That's exactly right. He's a little late.
Well, he's probably
sleeping on the job.
He was chilling by the fire earlier and he went off into the room.
Yeah.
That's cats for you.
You're a cool cat.
He's all right. He certainly is.
Is he the 13th Red?
No, he's named after a video game character from the 90s because my wife and I are nerds.
Okay.
Well, let me get another 10 minutes of grilling out of you here, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
And thank you so much for making time to come meet with me. And,
You're welcome.
And for us to build a little bit of a relationship.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Here.
It's good to know a fellow Longmonter.
Yes. I like to call us Long Monsters.
Long Monsters?
I prefer it.
You probably weren't around when the little bus that was going around that was called the Long Monster.
Oh, no.
So I don't know what it's called now. It's one of those RTD buses, but it was bright green.
Oh, they call it like the Bullet or something like
and
that.
And it was the short bus.
Okay.
And on the side was painted the bus seats, and then there was a being in each seat, and the bottom half of the being were monster-like legs.
Oh.
And it was the Long Monster.
I like that.
And it was a little bus. I think it's like Via or something.
Okay.
So,
okay.
So it truly was a thing. Long Monster.
I hope they don't sue us for copyright.
Yeah.
I'm just.
I never
using
did tell you why I was here in Longmont, but that's okay.
But let's ask.
That was at the beginning.
I'm curious because I know you moved here 20 some odd years ago.
23 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I met my husband, who's a native Coloradan, in Tampa, Florida.
Oh, really?
Where I was working. He was working in commercial real estate in the 80s when commercial real estate was booming.
Yeah.
And he had a project there out of his Denver office here that he had to go manage. And my roommate at the time's boyfriend was also working in commercial real estate. So they actually knew each other.
Oh, interesting.
So I met him there and ended up, after a while, moving here because the real estate market crashed. All three of my kids were born in Tampa, but moved here when my twins were 6 weeks old.
Oh, okay. Whoa,
So,
6 weeks.
6 weeks
You
old.
moved after having a baby like 6 weeks later? 2 babies?
2 babies.
You had 2 babies and then you're like, pack our shit, we're getting out of here. That's amazing.
Yeah. I know how to move. I've moved 20 times in my life. I'm like, yeah,
Sometimes like I
pack it
have a
up.
big meal, I'm out of commission for like 3 days. You know?
Yeah, moved here with babies and a 2-year-old
Wow.
and 2 dogs.
To Longmont? You moved right to Longmont?
Right. Well, we moved to Boulder County as we waited for this house to be built.
Oh, okay.
Actually, we built this house 23 years ago.
Cool.
Thank goodness that we did, because we could not afford to live there today.
Holy
if we
shit.
hadn't already been there.
Lady, I'm with you.
Yeah,
You know,
Longmont's gotten crazy.
I've been doing my best to help boost the economy and
Thank
help
you.
artists get into business and start
Yeah.
start an economic economy for the fucking songwriters in town that would have had to go to Denver to get a show or whatever.
Yeah.
I've been instrumental in that. But one of the side effects is like now it's tough for people like that to afford to live here.
I know.
So
they're
that's one of
moving.
our next
They're
things.
moving east.
Yeah, we're all gonna have to go to Frederick or
I have
Firestone
a, I
or
have a
something.
friend that had to move to Firestone. Just,
Yeah. That's happening, man. We're going to lose, you know.
Yeah.
Poor people give us our culture. That's what I believe. Because they have time. They're not so concerned with, you know, the shit that the rich folks are. The rich folks get to decide what part of the culture gets promoted. But it gets created by the poor folks, historically, I believe.
Well,
So
I think
that's
all
what's happening.
levels have a part to play in a community, and that's what I think is great about our Longmont City Council, that they are really focused on maintaining that sense of community that we have in Longmont, and monitoring the growth that's happening so that somehow we can hang on to that. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that about our town.
I do too. It really is on our politicians' radar that, like, oh, wait a minute, like, you know, we have a great arts scene, but we won't if everybody has to move away. That's just as simple as that. You know, so there's plenty of good, because people make money off of the art scene. The breweries in
Absolutely.
town make more money because there's an art scene.
Yep.
If that shit goes away, that's going to make our brewery bubble bust faster. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's going to bust anyway, you know, and the economy's going to fuck up, you know, maybe in the next 2 or 3 years because we're due, you know.
Well, I feel like it just took us. 2008 was really hard on my business, you know, and I just feel like we really did well to save ourselves from going into a depression, you know, and it took that 4 or 5 years to get out of where we were going, and thank goodness we did.
But the ship moves slow, right?
Yep.
People want to see results right now.
Yep.
Yeah, they want to be turned already, but they don't realize the
Right.
the machinery
Right.
that has to be put
You know,
in
and
place.
I look at that past 8 years and our past administration that worked really hard to turn the ship because we were going off a cliff. You know, an economic depression would have been way worse than what we did experience in 2008.
And it weren't no pleasure what we got. You know?
No, and we had to spend money to get ourselves out of that.
And the
But
dudes that caused
we're
that are
doing-
back doing the same shit.
Well,
now,
we're
you
doing
know?
well enough now
Yeah.
that we do not need to add to the deficit now.
Yeah.
I understand why we had to then, because we were going off that cliff, but we don't have to add to it now. And the fact that they're willing with open eyes to do that is just insanity. You know, especially for a party that has kind of hung on to that flag of we're the fiscal responsible party.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it.
I feel bad for the Republicans on some level because
There's your compassion.
well, I feel like the average Republican doesn't realize that the Republican brand has been co-opted, has been taken over. They're manipulating religious folks into thinking they have to vote a certain team every time by convincing them they're part of that tribe. But then the average voter's not really holding them to the standards they claim to be held to. You know,
Exactly.
all these nice Christian folks, you know, forgetting what it is to vote for your religion or to vote for the rights of others. You know, they forget how the game actually is played, you know, in America. You can swing your fist in any direction except my nose. You know what I mean?
And to really look at those religious tenets, almost of any religion, the real basic foundations that are so similar to each other across religions, to really, again, go back to the basics. Go back to whatever it is that that you based your religion on.
Right.
And how applicable is that in what you do in your daily life?
Yeah.
Really think about it, and who you're choosing to be your leader.
Yeah.
It matters.
Yeah,
It
I don't
matters.
begrudge Christians who want to vote for a dude because he seems Christian or whatever. But I do disapprove of, say, a politician who puts his religion above the nation. Because that's really not how we're supposed to be doing it.
No, it's not.
In my opinion. Of course, I'm not a religious guy. I used to be professionally religious in my early 20s. But now,
No,
I
people
have respect
came.
for it. But
People came here partly to escape religious persecution,
that's right, man.
and in order to do that, we have to keep our government and all religions separate.
Well, and which religion was persecuting them?
We
Right?
exactly.
Christianity was. So to think, and like, the religious authority figures of, 2,000 years ago killed the Jesus guy. So it's like, maybe the question is like, when we get too many of these people together and make a big corporation out of it, bad decisions get made.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to education.
Yes, it does.
Because if you look at not only from a religious standpoint, like know the history of your religion
Yes.
is the first place to start. But I'm going to go back to civics.
Yes.
So in our country, nationwide, I don't believe every zip code in this country, the public education system, which I am completely supportive of, it's all I've ever attended, and my kids as well. It is the foundation of our republic.
Yes, it is.
But I feel like there are gaps in our collective learning of our basic civic values. What we are all here as a country, what our country is all about, and what the glue that holds us together. So I feel like there has been some holes in the system over the decades where kids aren't growing up with that knowledge base about this,
The
Constitution, and how our system of checks and balances is supposed to work, how these institutions that we have in our government are valid and valuable, and that the government that we have has been built to its size because we the people have asked for these programs, we've been willing to pay for them. This government is supposed to be for us.
That's right.
And so if it's big government, we wanted it over
That's
the
right.
years, and we need to be responsible citizens and be ready to pay for what we've asked for.
Yeah.
We are getting a tremendous level of service at every level through our taxes, and so taxes should not necessarily be looked at as the government stealing money out of your pocket. These are things that we have as a community and as a society have said, yes, we want a strong, effective, efficient military.
Yeah.
And we're willing to.
We're fucking up the efficiency part.
That's why I added that word.
We also want roads that we all pay
want
for and benefit
infrastructure.
from. Yeah.
We have chosen as a society to put the job of law and order in the hands of organized, well-trained police
Or
departments.
privatized prisons.
Ah,
I
No.
hate that idea
yeah, me too.
because they have lobbyists.
Yeah.
Put dudes like me in jail for smoking a joint.
Well, yeah, and their whole
You know?
purpose is to fill the prison.
Yeah, that's their job.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like health insurance. We
Yes,
could
it
just
is.
keep going on and on.
Oh my God.
The-
Yes, I don't mean to take your whole
No,
day
the purpose
here.
of health insurance is not to promote health and to treat people's illnesses and preventative care. Health insurance companies want to just keep people on the hook. They don't want to necessarily pay claims. They want to just
They wanna
keep
get
the
paid.
system system going. So it's not focused on health care. So we need to focus on health care and health, and not so much on health insurance.
That's right. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting sell, because there's so much money behind the health insurance
it's
folks.
decades of building, and we can't get to a better system like that. I wish I had a magic wand. I would wave it.
If
But
it
there
were
are
so
ways.
easy, somebody else would have done it
There are
already.
ways to transition. There are. And one of the ones I'm kind of excited to hear about is the one Senator Bennett and Tim Kaine came out with,
Yeah.
because it's to put the Medicare option out there to the public market. My husband and I would buy it yesterday
Mm-hmm.
because we're caught in that crack that's hurting right now, big time.
Yeah.
Put it out there. Let it compete.
Right? Isn't that what we're supposed
You
to
know,
be doing?
let it compete. It's not a free market, but if those that think the healthcare insurance market is free market, which it's not,
No, I think that's right.
let it compete. It won't fail. It is this is an efficient system. Their overhead are 2.5–3% versus the private market is 15 to 17%.
Right.
So much waste. Yeah, I know I would save money if I could buy my health insurance policy through Medicare, and I would not be a burden to the government. I'd pay my share or more right now.
Yeah.
I have to
feel
wait.
the same way.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. McCormick, for coming on our little show. Where can people find out more about you?
Great. Thank you. I have a website, which is McCormickforcongress.org, and that's FOR instead of the number 4. McCormick
And would you spell
for
McCormick
Congress.
for them?
Yes, I will. McCormick.
It's the C's, man. You can't run out of C's here. You
Can't-
got to keep using them.
C for Colorado.
And for Congress.
And for Congress.
We even got an extra C for, community.
There you go.
Thanks
Communication.
very much. It's really nice
Yeah, it
meeting
was
you.
really great to meet you too. I appreciate your invite.
Oh my God. Well, it's nice to have you. And thanks for being nice to my cat.
Easy. I'm a veterinarian. Right?
He's a big fat ass piece of meat, but he loves everybody.